Thanks for joining us. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about PowerPoint. This is all about getting comfortable using PowerPoint. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to be with us. I am with the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center. This is a nonprofit organization, and we provide confidential, no-cost advisory and training services for you and your small business. We're funded by the SBA and by Humboldt State University. And here are a list of a whole bunch of us that are here to support you. I'm Linda, I'm one of the advisors. And this is the local Shasta Trinity County team. And these are the counties that we support. The way the SBDC is set up is we support different counties in the US. So if you are in the United States, we have a county that is supporting you. And you can go to Google, search your county name, and then SBDC, and you'll be able to find one near you. But with the beauty of webinar, I can support people all over the country. We even have international people here. So thanks so much for joining us. We support people on so many different topics when it comes to your business. So if you need some help with your business, reach out to your local SBDC, set up a meeting. We'll have more details about our SBDC at the end of this presentation. And I'll start off with reading our disclaimer for you. The information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, and other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSU-sponsored Programs Foundation, specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. I am Linda Fitzgerald, your presenter today. I'm a business coach, trainer, a speaker, an entrepreneur, and a connector. Today, I'm connecting you with some software that's really going to be helpful for you. I have over 30 years of experience in the corporate world, the private sector, the startup arena, as an entrepreneur, and with nonprofits. So for me today, this one's particularly special because my corporate world experience is at Microsoft. And one of the places I worked in Microsoft was at their PowerPoint office. So it's fun for me to share this with you. I've been in this program for a long time. Here we are, the agenda. This is what we're covering. PowerPoint menus and layout. Learn how to organize and design your presentation. Add text, objects, photos, PowerPoint overview. You're going to create a presentation that educates and engages. And presentation skills, this is really important because sometimes people know how to use the tool and they're making some mistakes and they're not doing things that are really important. So I'm going to show you the top 3 must-have items to include in your for engagement and the top 3 mistakes presenters are making. And if you're interested in more of these, you can Google it. There's top 10 lists of mistakes people make and top 10 things you should do. There's a lot more to include, but I just want to make sure you have the basics. So I am going to turn off my video so you can focus more on the presentation. And now I am going to switch my screens for you. Stop sharing this one. And let me go in and share this one. Hopefully you're seeing the proper screen here. David, interrupt me if for some reason you are not. You should be seeing using PowerPoint, and you should see the menus across the top and the ribbon as well as the slides on the side. So what I've done here is I've set up an outline of what I'm going to walk you through. And this is a 90-minute training session. There's so much information here that an hour is just not enough. And let's just dive in and get started. What I did here is, before I go forward, as we're on each slide we're going to talk about a different topic. If you have a question, please type in the chat that question, or if you want, you can turn your microphone on and ask the question while we're on that slide. Because as we move on to other topics, I'd really like to keep the question on each slide while I'm in that space in the presentation. So feel free to jump in with your question, or if you type it in the chat, David will let me know what your question is and we can address it. So here, as we get started, I want to talk about the different pieces of the screen. And when you launch PowerPoint, this is where it takes you. With a blank presentation, you would only see one slide in the upper left-hand corner, and it would be white and blank. Nothing's applied to it. So I want to show you the different sections. The quick access bar, follow my mouse. The quick access bar are these items way up here in what's called the title bar. These are things that you're going to use frequently. There are some default items there. You can customize it. If there's something you find you're doing over and over, you can customize that quick access bar. And the slides themselves, those are over here on the left side. You can see the slides you have in the presentation. There is the ability to slide through to go to the end and to go to the beginning. I like to think of this kind of as an elevator. The slide that I'm on has an orange type outline, so you can see which one you're on. And by clicking on that, brings it over here to the dominant part of my screen. The menu is what's up here. These are the one-word items across the top of the screen. As I click on the menu, see where it says ribbon right here? I'm going to talk about the ribbon. The ribbon is below the menu. The ribbon changes depending on which menu item you're on. So right now, the one underlined is the word home. Clicking on that, that is the ribbon related to the home menu item. Now, if I click on insert, that is now underlined. The ribbon changes to options that are associated with inserting. And then we have design, transitions, animations, and down the line. So let's stick back here with home. We're going to spend some more time here. The title bar I talked about a little bit, and that is the band across the top of your screen. When we're not running full screen, look over here, the X, that is going to close PowerPoint. This right here restores it down to a smaller size or makes it run full screen. If I click on that, the tooltip is the word that shows up when you hover over an item. The tooltip says maximize, so that's going to fill my screen. And when I am in the smaller version of that, let's go back here again. This is just some general options. The title bar is how I can drag my window around. So I have my mouse on the title bar and I'm pressing down the left mouse button so I can move my windows around. When I take it and drag it to the top of the screen, see how it fills out? If I let go of the mouse, it's going to make that run full screen. There we go. So that is the title bar. The slide area, this is the slide area right here. Those are the slides over there. The slide area is where I'm typing. So this is where I'm doing my work. And I work on one slide at a time. So as I click on the slides or as I add new slides, it changes. So I'll stick back here for a little bit. Help. Help is right now hidden behind something for me. So I'm going to drag this down and enlarge my screen because I have my Zoom menus across the top of the bar. So here's help right here. And then the notes section. Okay, let's make an adjustment here. It's interesting, as I'm in Zoom mode, I have a slightly different view. So I'm going to not run full screen. Down here, do you see the word notes? I'm clicking on that. And by doing that, it gives me an option to type notes on the slide. When you're presenting in PowerPoint, now granted, I'm not in presentation mode right now. When I'm in presentation mode, the PowerPoint slide takes up my entire screen. And that's great for what you want to see. But as the presenter, I might want to see my notes. So down here is where you type notes for yourself. And you can type exactly what you want to talk about on that slide. Right now, I'm going to hide those notes. And down here are the different options of views that I can go to. Slide sorter shows all my slides in little thumbnail type images. I can drag them around and reorder them. That's really helpful here. A reading view. I honestly can tell you I don't use that view. And let's get back here. And then presentation, that's when it runs full screen, which is what I was doing a minute ago in my other presentation. In fact, you can see the other presentation behind it, taking up the whole screen. And then down here is my view, how much I'm zooming in. Let me go back to this standard view. And I can hit the plus over here to increase it or decrease it a little bit. Or I can grab that little bar right there and I can zoom in and out. Over here is kind of an elevator to go up and down in my presentation. So this is moving me from one slide to another. If I click within this bar, it's going to take me down one slide at a time. If I want to drag down to the bottom, I can go to the very end of my presentation. Now you're getting some ideas of what we're going to talk about later. These little buttons down here progress me a slide at a time, up or down. So that is some exposure to the main aspect of using PowerPoint, kind of the main features here. So now I want to, let's see here. We just went through each item. Let's see, we went through that. Let's see, home and now insert. Let me talk more about the home buttons. We have cut, copy, format painter. If you use any of the Microsoft products, Format Painter is my favorite. Let's do a little bit on this presentation. So here, let's say this is all default. Everything I've typed right now is the default of what they give to us. So let's say I want to go in and I want to do some formatting on this particular word. I highlight the word, and by doing that, I click on the left side of the word, and I'm holding the mouse button down, and then I'm dragging the mouse to the right to highlight a word. That's one way to do it. And another is double clicking on the word. If I triple click, I get the sentence or the group of words that are together. So highlighting a word is what you need to do before you want to change something about it. So I'm going to do that. And then you see this little format menu pops up thinking, hey, Linda, you must be wanting to format something. Let me show these for you so they're nice and easy. Notice I have them here or I have them up here. So let's go up here and let's say we want to change the font color. If I click on this button right here with the A with the red below it, by clicking on that, it's going to be red. So I'll click on it. Now let's say I want a different color. That's the little drop down next to the A. I can choose whatever color I want. I personally love that bright blue one. And notice when I change that color, the text underneath the A now has changed to the most recent color option I selected, thinking I probably want to use it again. It's just going to speed it up for me. So let's make a number of changes to this word. So we just changed it to blue. And let's change the font to something that's going to really look different. I love how the description of the font shows the font style, so you see what it's going to be like. And let's change the font size. Now notice font size goes to 96. We can actually go larger than that. Let's do 120. And so you know 72, font of 72 is 1 inch. Now right now I did 108. And it shrunk down because it's inside this text box, which is limiting my abilities. This text box has some features around it right now. So we will go there. It didn't do higher. It said I can go as high as 108 given the constraints of this text box. That's fine. I'm okay with that. And over here, let's see, what else do we want to do? Highlighting. We have some different colors. I personally find yellow great for when I'm highlighting a book, but a little harsh on my eyes when I'm doing something on a presentation. So I don't do a lot of things in highlighting on a PowerPoint presentation, but I wouldn't hesitate to do it in something maybe Excel related. And notice I just did that and it didn't change anything. Let's highlight the word first. There we go. Now I've highlighted and now I change to a light gray. So we've made some different formats here. When you're in PowerPoint, you might find that you've done something and you like that format, you like that layout, you want to use it over and over. This is my favorite feature. So we're going to highlight this right here. We can, like I said, we can drag over it, we can double click it. And I'm going to use this feature here called Format Painter. I love when you hover over something, you get some descriptions as to what it is. So click on Format Painter. And then my mouse shape has changed. It's a little paintbrush with an insertion beam. So I am now going to highlight what I want that format to happen on. And I'm going to let go of the mouse, and there you go. It captured the exact same formatting, everything I did to it, and put it over the word menu. You might want to do it over and over. Now, what this does, I'm going to highlight it again. Format Painter. If I click Format Painter one time, which is what I just did with menu, it allows me to cover one thing. And then the Format Painter is turned off. If I want to use the Format Painter over and over again, what I do is instead double click it. And now when I come over, I can highlight a bunch of things that are not continuous, and that Format Painter stays on for me until I go up here and click it again to turn it off. And that is really helpful because you will find that you'll want to use it over and over. That personally is my favorite tool of all the Microsoft products. So as you can see, you can create a PowerPoint presentation that is very hard to look at. This is not pretty. Do not do this for your attendees when they're watching you present. It's frustrating. So let's go in here and let's clean this up.
I have a question on the Format Painter.
Yes.
So like you've made all those changes and you said that it was showing the most recent Format Painter you liked. So let's say you liked one and you made some changes and then you went off and you worked on another slide and you had a different format and then you wanted to go back to that first format that you were using. Is there a way to do that, to save that, or it only will work for the most recent one you've done?
Format Painter captures whatever you've done most recently. So I love that you asked that question. Let's do something. So here, let's do something different. We're going to go over here. We're going to capture that word. We're going to, shadow's a little hard to see, but that's kind of cool. We'll underline it and we're going to make the font bigger. This is make the font bigger and this is make the font smaller. So right now, let's go in here and I'm going to double click this to highlight it. And I'm going to click the Format Painter one time. And I'm going to go to a different slide and I'm going to apply it here. Now, remember, we kept that Format Painter. It was only on one time. So now it's off because I clicked it once. So let's go to multiple slides. Let's capture the format here. I'm double clicking this time. My Format Painter is going to stay on. So I'm going to stay on this slide and I'm going to highlight this word with that new format. I'm going to go a couple slides away. I'm going to highlight this word and it stays on as we move from slide to slide. Does that answer your question?
Really, what I was asking was if you had used that and made those changes and then you went on to the next slide and you formatted it differently and then you went on to a third slide and on the third slide you wanted to do the format that you had used on slide one when you've done something different in the middle.
Okay, well, the way the Format Painter works is it's whatever you decide you want to format. So, I mean, I could work on slides one and I could use Format Painter and then I can go to a couple other slides. Now the Format Painter is off right now.
Okay.
So you go to the slide that you want to capture something from and then capture it.
Okay.
So let's say I go here and now I want everything to revert back to this format, which I like. I'll choose it. And then I'll go to this slide and highlight it. So Format Painter is just going to capture whatever you select before you hit that button.
Right. But if you select and you use a format and then you are working on a slide and you use a different format, and later on you want to go back to that first format, you would have to enter that format again because it's not the most recent one that you used. Is that correct?
Right. And it's not holding anything. Notice right now, Format Painter isn't holding anything for me. It has
Okay,
no idea what I want to copy the format of. I
yeah,
first need to tell it, and it doesn't remember a sequence. I can't go into it later and say, oh, you know what, do this. Do what I did 3 minutes ago.
yeah, you can't say, I want to make this a favorite format and go back to it.
You know what? I bet you can. I bet
Okay.
you can. And I bet you could learn that on, if you go to YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And YouTube, the wonderful thing about YouTube or YouTube University, whatever you want to call it, you can find fantastic 2-minute videos of exactly a feature you're trying to understand.
Okay.
I use that when I'm trying to remember some sort of awkward formula in Excel. I don't need to memorize it. I can have someone explain it to me in 2 minutes. But so that sort of thing is beyond the level that we're doing here. But I would bet there's probably a way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But I love having that real example in order to go through. So thank you so much for asking that question. So here we're checking out the different options of the menus. So home is basically about formatting the page that you're on with its basic items. So let's work our way through here. And we talked about some formatting, and notice how things get grayed out. Things become gray, and this is a little confusing. We're highlighting this in gray. I'm going to remove that highlight because sometimes it looks like we're actually about to do something to it. So I'm going to remove the fact that that's highlighted. And you remove a highlight by saying no color. Now, as we go up here, when something is selected, right now, these items right here are typed in a box, and the box came as a default item of PowerPoint helping me lay out my slide. I'm going to show you a little bit about that and insert a new slide. Right now, I'm going to click in between these two. See how I can click on a slide or in between slides? I'm going to click in between these two slides because I want to insert a slide right here. And up here, I have the option of new slide, and there's a little drop down right there. If I click up here, it's just going to bring me a general new slide. When I click here, I get choices. This it calls the title slide, and it's doing formatting for you. So a title slide, let me choose that. A title slide gives you a top box that's going to be larger. Oh, typo. And then a smaller section that will be by someone. And it just does a lot of the formatting for you. This is a great layout for a title slide. Other slides you can choose from. Let me click again where I want to insert it. Other slide types you can choose from are a title on the top and content, a header that you have for in between sections, and it describes each one. Let me show you this one, a title with content. This is what I used for most of my slides. Here's where I put the title of whatever that I'm going to be describing on that slide. Click to add text. Then I hit the enter key. Things right here are bulleted. And notice up here, I'm in this particular box that's outlined by these buttons, the little dots, and I have this little swirl on the top. What these buttons do is allow you to resize the box. Grabbing it at the corner, I can move 2 dimensions. Grabbing it on the side, I can slide back and forth. Now on the top, this allows me to rotate things. Rotating isn't really as necessary with your text, but it's pretty neat when it comes to adding objects. So let me go over here, staying along this area, and I want to show you some of these really neat tools you can enter in. And if you've seen PowerPoint presentations, and by now most of us have, there are shapes people put in here. So I'm going to put in an arrow. I clicked on the button, notice it's gray there, and now I get to draw the space where I'm going to put that arrow. When I type in it, I don't have to click anything. I just type, and it automatically is centered and it chooses a readable color font. So since this is colored in blue, it chose white. Seeing the absence of color right there makes that easier to read. I can change the font color. I can go up here and I can play with my fonts. I can play with the size of it. And this is where that rotation can really be helpful, because you might be pointing to something. You might be trying to draw attention to something. Now in here, depending on what I have highlighted, like I said before, different things are going to be available or not available. So I'm going to move this box out of the way. In order to move it, I need to click on it so that it's selected. And then I can put my mouse on top of it, hold my left mouse button down and drag it. Now I can also resize this. The yellow buttons are going to affect the shape. The white buttons are going to affect the size, but the yellow I can determine, is it going to be narrow? What exactly is the shape? And then the proportion. So now I want to go over to this text right here. It's bulleted. I'm going to highlight it. I had to double click on it to select it. And when I double click, you get the border line. And now I can go in here and highlight something. Right now, these have bullet points, and you can see up here, there's the bullet point. That's the option that it chose by default. If I don't like that, this little down arrow gives me other options. And I can even go into more formatting than that, but let's switch over to squares. And this is showing my alignment. Right now, the default for this is left aligned, which is pretty standard for bullet points. Centered, keeps the bullet point right with it. Right aligned, justified, doesn't really make sense right now because my lines aren't long enough. And then there's numbering. You can use different numbering schemes or outlining. And let's see, alignment. There are a lot of buttons here that I'm not going to address, just because there is far more than we can cover in the amount of time that we have here. I really want to get you comfortable with the basics. But I find these things really helpful. What you can notice is you can get yourself into a layering issue where you can't see something. So I want to bring a new shape in. We'll go with a square this time, and I get to decide where to draw it. I'm going to draw it right here. And the default color it gave me is blue. I am going to change that color. I'm going to right click it. And then up here, I have an outline color and a fill color. Let's change the fill color to something different. Oh, let's go with this gold color. Here we go. We'll go with the brighter one. And now what I click on brings it to the front. Oops, not true. What I click on after I tell it to come to the front, I'm going to select it first, and then I'm right clicking with my mouse. And here are my options. Notice up here, bring to front. So you can allow things to layer on top of each other. It can get tricky because if I bring this to the front, and if I enlarge that box, you forget you have another piece of art there, and all of a sudden you're saying, where is it? I can't see it. So sometimes you're going to have to move some things around to notice that you have something, but we can click and drag and we can layer things. So we are back over here. I want to walk you through some other menus. The insert menu. This slide has a lot going on, so let's go to a clean slide. Let's change this word. I double clicked on it to highlight it, and right now I can type. Oops, jumped, hit a button, took me to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the insert menu here. So now I'm in the insert menu that's underlined, and I have different options. When you insert, you can insert a new slide, which we did a minute ago. You can reuse slides. You can insert a table, pictures, Let's see, I'm going to try to move something that's in my view here that has to do with Zoom. Let me get that out of the way. There we go. A table is a frequent thing that people insert. So let's insert a table. Right here, it's showing us the box of where it's going to enter something, and it gives us a nice format where it has margins on the side. And right down here, there's options. It's showing me the different things it can insert right into this square. It can insert a table, a chart, smart art, 3D models, pictures, online pictures, insert a video, or insert an icon. So those things are there, and you can also get things up here. So we are going to insert a table. And when I click on the insert table, it says, what do I want the table to look like? How many rows do I want and how many columns? And I have other options below. I can insert an Excel spreadsheet if I want to. Let's put in a table that is 4 across by 5 down. And I love that it gives it a format like this. It makes it easy for the viewer to look at. Your heading is going to be a slightly different color. It'll stand out. And your data rows are off color just slightly from one row to the next. It helps people's eyes look across as you compare data looking to the right. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the default that it chooses. And right now we're in a table. Look, the menu up here, or actually the ribbon changed because there are specific options within a table. So let's go back to the insert menu. Another thing people frequently insert are pictures. And I want you to be careful with pictures because I don't want you to get in trouble with them. And it depends on how you're using your PowerPoint. When you have a PowerPoint presentation and you're sharing an image of clip art and you are using it within your business, not a big deal. That's why a lot of it's there. If you're creating a PowerPoint and you are going to use it for an online course and you're going to sell that online course, you better make sure you have the rights to use that picture. And this is something that some of our marketing advisors go into when they talk about creating posts that you share. So if you take a picture yourself, absolutely you can use it, but just be thoughtful of, is that image that you're sharing something you have permission to use? When it comes to pictures, you can go in and you can pull pictures off your hard drive. You can go on the internet and pull pictures. Notice there's online pictures. We'll click on the picture button. Right now, it's going to my own personal library. You can also bring in screenshots. And here we have shapes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you use the clip art if you're just doing a presentation for encouragement or information to a group of ladies? Do you need to get permission first?
Is this, it isn't something that you're selling?
No, nothing. I do prayer lines, and they ask me to do like deep breathing and things like that. And sometimes I would want to use a clip art.
And a lot of people do that. They go out and use it. The main thing you need to watch for is if you're selling anything.
No.
Or just be thoughtful. You might want to, I maybe have opened a can of worms by bringing this up, but I'm happy to share with you. When you're using things that are on the internet, just be thoughtful. Just because you can see it and you can copy it doesn't mean you have the right to use it. A lot of companies, if you search for images, you'll notice they put what's called a watermark across their picture. And the reason they do that is they want you to pay for it if you want to use their picture. So just be thoughtful of how you're using things. If you aren't selling things, if you're just creating it for your own use, that's why a lot of that clip art's out there. There's even clip art that if you go to various Microsoft pages and you're searching for their clip art, it's coming from them. They realize that that's why you're using it. So it's not a big concern, but just be thoughtful of how you're using things. Make sure that if there's something that has a trademark or something that has a registered trademark or something, just be thoughtful of those things. When I do individual instructional trainings like this, I don't use a lot of images just because this is going to get posted. It's going to have the SBDC logo on it. So I have to be very thoughtful. You'll notice that I don't have things like that in here. I did capture a couple slides as examples that we'll go to in a little bit, and we might be able to talk a little more about that. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And now design. This is fun and scary at the same time. The reason is you can change a lot of things that you're doing when you're in design mode. And if you're going to do a presentation and you want to change the layout of it, right now I don't have any design applied. Notice everything is kind of just boring and white background. If you know you want to use a template, that's what these are. I suggest you apply the template early on in the presentation. The reason for that is different templates are going to lay out each slide differently. And the more you work on each slide and come in later and apply a design, the more you're going to say, oh boy, I have to go back and manually adjust all my slides. So let me show you what I mean by that. These options up here show me what will happen if I apply a template. So let's go in and let's apply this template here. Now this one has a picture that shows up on a number of slides, and it changed my background color. This one here has a white background with different colors to choose from. Let me choose something that has kind of a pattern so it'll look really different. Now look as I go back to some of my earlier slides. My cover slide. Now look, if I had put a bunch of time into this and now I went and applied this slide, it's like, oh my goodness, that looks terrible. So if you're going to apply one, apply it early. Some of them will fit in pretty seamlessly, like this one. Not that bad, but it did change some of my layouts. Granted, when I changed this format right here, it messed with the slide. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to use that format painter. I don't see it right now because I have to click on the home menu to get back to it. Here it is. And I'm going to apply it to slides. And now you'll notice this particular template that I applied in the design, it comes across okay. It doesn't mess up too many things. I'm not so sure I like that red swatch of color, but what is neat is it was smart enough. It has a red accent in this design, and it was smart enough to go in and color things in the color scheme that matches my template. Remember before this was gold and this was blue. So when you apply a template, it's going to apply its color scheme. And that's what these little colors are below. See what I'm pointing at? Those are the colors in the color scheme. So if you are representing a company or a group and you have a certain color scheme, you can pick a template that looks right with it. And these are the original, kind of the top view. But notice over here, you have more to choose from. And you have ways that you can edit those templates. And just by clicking on it, it applies it everywhere. And these particular slides, when you look at them, they are the wider screen, like most laptops are. They're the wider screen. Now, if you've used PowerPoint for a longer time, you remember when our screens weren't so wide. Over here, this is slide size. The wide screen is what's your default now. But for some monitors, they don't have that wide screen, and that would be the standard screen. Again, this is like design, and the earlier you make your commitment to the design of the slide and the size, the better, because you don't want to waste a lot of time having to reformat. So watch what happens when I convert things to the smaller size. It gives me an option. Do I want to maximize everything, or do I want to ensure everything fits? So we are going to ensure it all fits, and it makes some adjustments. And now I'm on that smaller slide. And I like this. If sometimes I create a PowerPoint presentation and I have no intention to ever use it as a PowerPoint presentation, I create it for handouts. Because I create handouts on here, I have full ability to move items around. If you've used Microsoft Word and you're trying to move objects around on the screen, it is not as simple because the objects get anchored to text. Where here, I can create things and I can move them anywhere I want. So sometimes I'm using PowerPoint just to create handouts. And it doesn't have to be in this landscape. You can actually use in here, we can go in and we can customize. and we can make them portrait.
Hmm.
So bonus tip for you, again, we'll say ensure fit. And now this is how I make my presentation handouts that I give to people. Let me correct that. These are not the notes pages that come with PowerPoint. This is when I'm creating something that I want to give to people as a handout. So I'm going to convert back, but that's a pretty neat feature. I use it often. I wanted to make sure you knew about it. So here we are switching back. I talked with you a little earlier about notes. When you have notes, you type them down here and you type in here what you want to mention, to remember for yourself. I'm having some issues with my mouse. There we go. And down here is where I would type what I want to talk about on each slide. What PowerPoint has the ability to do is you create your presentation and then you can put your notes here. When you're presenting, you have an option. If you have a second monitor, this is really helpful. You can have the full presentation that everyone else sees on a different monitor. And then on your second monitor, you can see a preview of your following slide and your notes. Really helpful to do that. Sometimes people say, Linda, I don't have the ability to do that. What can I do? So in that case, if you know you're going to run things full screen and you can't get to your notes, what you do is when you print, take you over here to File and then Print. Right here, there are different options. All slides, current slides, slide range. Those are the slides I'm choosing from, but look here, full page. Look at the different options I have here. Do I want to print my slides one per page? That's full page. And to the right, it says notes pages. This is what I was just talking about. When you print with notes pages, it's going to print an image of your slide on the top of the paper, and on the bottom, it's going to print your notes. I use this feature when I am doing a training in front of a class. I print this out because I have it to refer back to if I need to. And if anything should ever happen to my presentation, I have an immediate backup. And if I have people in the classroom working on their own laptops and I have an issue with my presentation, this is my emergency backup plan. So then there's handouts you can print out for people. Handouts options are 1 per slide, 2 per slide, 3 per slide. 3 per slide is really nice because if you see that little image there, on the right side, there are lines so people can write notes and they can follow along with you. And then you can see there's other options here as well. But printing that out for yourself is really helpful. So let me get back over to my presentation. And that is how that notes section can be really helpful for you. So let's revert back. So we did design, and this, you can have a lot of fun with this. I recommend if you want to use your design, if you want to play with the design, start with 2 slides. Start with, let's just do it right here. We're gonna first of all, let's go to something more basic. There we go. That looks a little bit more like my original presentation. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to insert a new slide. And if this is what I recommend to you, if you want to decide on a format, insert a new slide that is a title slide and insert a new slide that is a title and content slide. Then when you're playing with the design, those are really different layouts. So this particular one, your title slide has an image and this one is plain. You'll get a better perspective of what these different ones are going to look like for you. And for some of them, the title slide is very different. Okay, let's remove some of these, get to a generic one. And design transitions, I am not going to go into. That is a more advanced thing. I will show you just a little bit about it. Oh, what the heck? We have time. I'm looking at the clock. We're in good shape. Let's do something on transitions. Transitions are how you move from one slide to the next. Normally in a PowerPoint presentation, it just switches from one to the next and you don't even really pay much attention to it. But let's say you want to apply a fade from one slide to the next. So I'm going to go on this slide and I'm going to choose my next slide. Oh, I might have to go into presentation mode to show it. Let's see what happens here. David, let me know if I get myself into trouble. I'm not normally switching between these screens, but here we are in presentation mode. And you can see the difference. See how some of them are just jumping from one slide to the next. Let me see if I can get out of here. Hopefully you're with me. So the fade, and when you apply these, you can apply them one slide at a time or the whole presentation. Here is a mistake that people make. Someone learns about slide transitions and they get really carried away and they decide to put a different type of transition on every slide. So I'm going to show you some of these examples. So they might look like that between one slide to the next, and then they'll do this for the next one. And then they'll switch to a different kind. And it's very distracting for the person when they're trying to watch for your material and every single slide transition is different. So don't fall into the getting excited about different sorts of slide transitions. It can be really effective to use something different when you want to draw attention. Now I can go through on my left side, I am in the slide area and I'm using right now, I'm using my mouse. I'm sorry, I'm using the up and down arrows on my keyboard to move down from slide to slide. We were over here and I'm going to make this a little larger. I clicked on it first and now I'm going to drag it by the corners to fill my screen. And now each of these boxes I can actually click in and type. And I can format it just like I did for anything else. And I can go in, triple click, get all the words, and I can make this quite a bit larger. So it's just like the shapes. You can type in each one of these. And that was when we were using for insert for a table. So insert, we talked about table, picture, we did a shape already. A chart, you can insert a chart. Let me do it over here on a blank page. And right down here in my options, right there is insert chart. It has me choose what type of chart I would like. You can click over here to see your choices, pie chart. And when it comes to pie chart, look, you even have choices for how is that pie chart going to look, or a donut chart. We'll choose a pie chart. And look, it comes with a spreadsheet associated with it. You then go in here and replace the information that's here. And then it's going to automatically update.
Oh.
And you can go in and you can play with the colors, you can play with the labels. Again, anything, if you want to use anything like this and you're saying, oh my gosh, I don't remember how to do that. Go to YouTube, type in PowerPoint pie chart. And I bet you will find a quick video about 2 to 3 minutes of how to edit things on here. Word art. Let's go to word art. Here's word art right here. Add some artistic flair to your document. So let's click on that. And it gives me things that notice there's a lot of formatting already done to it. I don't need to go in. This one's kind of neat. It has a shadow. This is pretty complicated. It would have been very hard. In fact, I don't know if I could have gotten that shadow partial on the bottom without an awful lot of work. So this is why word art can be really nice and help you out. Again, this is text where you can then come in and edit specific things to be different. But applying the word art does a lot of that work for you. Now notice right now, I can't see the top of my slide. The reason for that is I'm showing notes right here. And my screen, I no longer can see that upper part. I have a choice. I can use this to move up or move down. Oops, I'm moving for slides. Sorry about that. Let's do something, get back to where we were. Here we are. Okay. So I can, it's my percentage I want to adjust. I can make it smaller so I can see everything. Or I have the option of having these notes go away. I always want to be able to see my entire slide. We talked about design and we applied some things from design. We talked about some transitions. And now this particular one I wanted to share with you because look at all the formatting it did for you. It has two boxes, the same size, side by side. If you enter things in bullet points, they're going to show up. It's mirroring each other. If you want to do that, if you want to do bullet points, but I could very easily have one of them be bullet points. And I could come over here and I could have this one be a table. I could have this one be art. I could have it be text. I get to choose. It's nicely formatted to fill up my screen. It wants to give you a border on the edge and then populate that whole, the whole square for you. Oh, this, I just moved this. I want to show you something. If you have your slides, you've worked on your presentation and you're thinking, oh gosh, I really need to move this slide. You can click on it and drag it. By dragging it, I'm keeping the left mouse button down and then letting go. And it will allow me to reorder my slides. And if I want to see more slides, I can actually make this narrower and I can see a lot more slides, which can make it easier to drag something to be in another place. When it's larger, I can see better what's on the slides. I think this is a pretty good option for me. And again, I showed you earlier, we can go into this slide sorter view and see a lot of things. And I can adjust this view and I can move things into a different order.
I'm sorry, can you show me? I kind of missed where did you select the slides sorter view? I didn't see.
The slide sorter is down here on the bottom right corner. Normal view is what I'm working in right now. Slide sorter is what I clicked on and it brought me all the slides of my presentation or as many as it can fit. And then I can move this little bar depending on what I need to see in the slides, and it will adjust the size for me. And then I have the option over here to scroll down or scroll up. So now I'm going to go back to, oops, switch screens on me. And here we go. So let me take us back to normal view. Animate the text. Okay, this is an advanced one. We're going to go in here. Let's see here. Animations. Animation pane. I'm just going to kind of point this to you and let you know you can do it. This is, I can get myself into a rabbit hole of way beyond what you need to know. I want to make sure I talk with you about it. You can have bullet points where the first bullet point arrives from the right side of your screen. You may have seen this before, or you can have it just appear and it kind of looks like magic as it shows up. And you can, that is a slide animation. Over here, you can set the time of how long it takes for that to show up. It can bounce in, it can come in quickly or slowly, it can spin and rotate. See all these words across the top, appear, fade, fly in, float in. Those are ways you can have an image or text come into a slide for you. So that feature is there for you. A little bit beyond what we want to cover here.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that it's there. And I am allowing time at the end of this presentation for us to just talk about it in general, because I've talked about a lot of different things, but let me just get myself back on track here. Here we go. We talked about design. We talked about this type of a slide format. Slideshow. Slideshow is what I showed you at the very beginning when I was in showing you that SBDC format. Slideshow means this particular piece, this slide, takes up the entire screen and that's all you see. You don't see anything else. And that is how PowerPoint operates for people most of the time. Often they are running it from maybe a screen, an LCD monitor, maybe they're running it off PowerPoint. And if you're presenting in front of a room, it can be very helpful for you to not have to always walk up to the computer and press the arrow key, because the arrow right key is what takes you to the next slide. If you are presenting in front of a room of people, granted, there's not a lot of that training happening right now, but hopefully it will be coming back. When I'm presenting in front of a room, I have a remote in my hand, and the remote has a button that moves it forward and back. And I have a little piece that connects to my computer that is talking to, it's kind of like an external mouse, really. And I'm holding it in my hand. It's allowing me to advance the slides without having to walk up to my computer. So I really suggest investing in something like that if you find you are doing a lot of presentations in a room and you don't want to be standing right next to your laptop, or you don't want to be saying to someone, next slide, please. So in just a moment, we're going to review and open up to questions, but I want to give you some things I promised at the beginning of what are some things that people are doing that are mistakes. Now, look at this slide. This is when I'm presenting and I'm creating the presentation. Notice it has this default box around it for me to type in, but I didn't use that. I am going to hit the delete button right here to make this go away because it's a bit distracting. So these are things you want to avoid. Now, this was formatted very differently before I hit that design button and applied a new design. But for the purposes of this presentation, I am going to use it like this because the other slides are arranged in such a way that they build upon this one. So here's what I want to teach you on this slide. Notice there's a picture and there's text on it. I am going to enlarge the view here so you can see it better. It's very hard to appreciate the picture, and there's so much text here, it's hard to read. Number one mistake people make when they're presenting is they put a PowerPoint slide up there and they read directly from it. Don't do that. And the reason is people can read your slide faster than you can read it. So as you're reading it, they're done and they're moving on to the next thing. Instead, put keywords or phrases on the slide that remind you of what you want to talk about, and use that as kind of like notes. When I do a training session, I don't have separate training notes I'm looking at. I have them as my emergency backup in case I have an issue with my presentation. But I put the keywords on the slide that remind me what to talk about. So for this one, the mistake here is it is too much text on the slide and people aren't really able to appreciate the picture. This next slide, really bad PowerPoint presentation slide right here. There's too much going on. They got really excited with the different features here, and whatever information they'd be sharing with me on that is lost in just the busyness of everything. So that is your second item that you don't want to do. I'm going to adjust my presentation here a little bit. There we go. And now the third slide. No slide consistency. The beauty of using a design template is you have a visual consistency throughout the whole presentation. Watch this. Let's do it right now. We're going to apply a better presentation template than we have here. Let's go to this one. As I scroll through my presentation, everything has this gray background. Oh, I chose one that has my company logo on it. Let's not do that. We're not talking about my business right now. There we go, generic one. So this one, notice there's a consistency as you look at all this information. If green is your color and you have multiple shades of green in your logo, you might love this. And although I'm sharing standard information, there's a framework that comes with it. So if I have text in all these slides, there's a consistency, there's a design. Now, if I were doing a presentation and I went from the first slide that says introduction to the second slide that says really bad PowerPoint presentation, there's no consistency. It is just mismatched. It looks like I borrowed from someone else and didn't spend the time to make it my own. And now I want to talk with you about things that you can do to get your audience involved. When you do a PowerPoint presentation for an audience, you want their attention. You want them to interact. We started this presentation by letting you know you can interject with questions. That gets your interaction. We also let you know you can type into the chat. Now, I want to show you something neat on my screen right now. Look at the template that I have and look at the option, the design ideas on the right. I really like that top one. Look at this design idea. That makes my slide look pretty sharp. And all I had to do was click a button. And look at the items that they chose for me. Visuals, they put an eye, call to action, they put a megaphone. I love this slide. I never would have come up with this on my own. I applied a design template, and then I used the design ideas that PowerPoint's giving to me. And I look like a pro. I look like I had this in mind the whole time, and I didn't. They did the work for me. So create interaction with your audience. Let them know at the beginning of the presentation how you'd like them to interact with you. Do you want them to interrupt your presentation? Do you not want them to interrupt your presentation? Now, there are a couple options here where you don't need to say that. If you're presented as a presenter and other people are presenting too, and no one's asking questions at all, don't go there. The structure has already been set up. But if you want to encourage interaction, let people know. For a presentation like this, if I had an audience of 50 people, I would not want to get interrupted constantly throughout the presentation. I would worry about my time frame. But what you can do is you can decide, do you want them to interact or not? And if so, invite them to the way you want them to interact. That way, they don't feel like, oh, I'm making a mistake by asking a question. And visuals, provide visuals. Audiences, teachers are taught this when people are getting teaching credentials, they're taught the specific ways people are learning. I learned this when I got training on how to be an instructor and a software trainer when I was creating presentations. The three primary learning techniques are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. The visual learners, and people are usually all three, but they have a dominant one. If they're a visual learner, they need to see something. That's what is best for them. In the classroom, the teacher's writing on the whiteboard for the visual learners. For the auditory learners, they need to hear it. So they want to hear what's going on. The teacher in front of the classroom is speaking. And then the kinesthetic learners are the people that need to do it. They need to get their hands on it. That's why the teacher's saying, come on up to the whiteboard and work out these problems. So they're tapping into all three learning styles. When you are presenting in PowerPoint, you're using all three of these naturally. Visually, they're looking at the PowerPoint presentation. For auditory, you're talking, but the kinesthetic, the interaction, that one's a little bit harder. They're in the audience. So the way you're getting them to interact with you and getting that kinesthetic action is by engaging with them, getting them to participate. So those two are kind of tying together, that interaction and the visuals. But visuals are going to make it interesting. Visual people remember in pictures. If you put up a slide that has so much text on it, it's exhausting. People are trying to read your slide while you're speaking, so they aren't hearing you or they aren't reading the slide, one or the other. When you put a picture on there, it helps capture an image in their mind, and they can recall better what your presentation is later. Then the final item here is a call to action. And just to make sure I'm using this in my presentation myself, my call to action for you after you attend this training is, how are you going to put the skills that you just learned into action? I would encourage you to look at your calendar right now. And the information I'm sharing with you is fresh. If you just watched this as a video, or if you just participated in the live training, it's fresh for you right now. I want you to open PowerPoint and use it within the next 24 hours and practice some of the skills that we talked about. Put the practice into action. Put it on your calendar, pull out your calendar, if it be an online calendar or hard copy calendar. Document the fact, or your phone, set an alarm, document the fact that you are going to practice some of these skills. If you're giving a presentation to an audience, you're giving it to them for a reason. What is the call to action? Call to action is also a sales term. If you ever watch videos, there is an action at the end of that sales video of asking you, the viewer, to do something. When you're presenting, you want people to be better off, to either be more informed, educated, more knowledgeable. There's a reason for you doing this presentation. What is it that you want the viewer, the attendee, to do as a result of your presentation? How will they be different? And ask them to take action on that. That is going to make all the difference in a presentation. You may want to end your presentation with a question where they're answering that question. You want your presentation to impact them in some way. And to really have an impact, they need to do something. So I encourage you to have an outcome, have a grand finale slide, have something at the end where they are going to take action. We have that slide here. It's this one too a little bit for you, but we're also going to talk about specifically the SBDC at the end of the presentation. And we still have another 20 minutes. So I have an opportunity right now to open it to questions for you. What questions do you have? And if I covered it or I didn't cover it, let's see how we can at least move you forward a little bit. So please open up.
We have a question in the chat that I neglected to address when I think you addressed it.
Okay.
It says, does the remote have a mouse control also?
The remote that I have does not have a mouse control. It has, it is just button up. I can go up and down. There are different types of there are different types of tools you can purchase. You might want to go online, whatever the shopping site is that you use, there's a few of them, and search for computer remote, PC remote, PowerPoint remote. Try some of those words in your search and see what they come up with. They're always coming up with new things. So it's hard to say what the option is right now. Another feature that people like is a laser pointer. A laser pointer, if you're standing across the room, you can use a laser pointer and point it at your presentation, and it'll be like a pointer, quite literally, with a little red dot on your screen pointing out something on that slide. So that can be an option of what you mean by a pointer. But if you mean physically the ability to move your mouse on that slide, I have not come across something like that. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I haven't searched for anything like that lately. David, do we have other questions in the chat?
No, not at the moment. I did put up the link for feedback if you'd like to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. In the chat, you will notice there's a link to feedback. We love your feedback. It is so important to us. Both personally, it's important for us for funding for the SBDC. It is how we share with the SBDC the impact that we're having on our viewers. That is very important to us. By completing that feedback form, we can let them know that you value this, and then we'll be able to keep doing them. We also love your feedback because you let us know what we can do better or if anything's missing. I love to do trainings. I'm always asking for feedback, and I let people know my favorite feedback is maybe that uncomfortable feedback you might not want to give me, because that is what makes me better. And the beauty of filling out these surveys, it doesn't come to me. it goes to Emily and she reviews them all. And then she tells me what she learns. So if you have anything you'd like to share, positive or constructive, we love it. We love to hear it. Thank you so much. And if there are presentations, webinars, whether it be on a software tool or on a skill that you need as a business owner, or maybe there's some issue you're going through that's COVID related and you would love for us to address it in a webinar, please let us know. A lot of these webinars have been created for you because you asked for that topic. Favorite thing for us to create is something that our clients are asking for. We are here to serve you. And you can click on that link right now. It will open a separate window for you and just let that window sit. And after we wrap up the webinar, you'll be able to respond to that and fill out that form. It'll just take you a couple minutes. And
Yeah,
yes, another question.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you explain, I'm sorry, I missed some of it, what you said about using the remote, not having to stand at your laptop or your computer when you're presenting?
Sure. What the remote does for you is it kind of acts as, if you're familiar with using a mouse attached to your computer, the mouse left and right buttons will move you forward a slide or back a slide. Well, the mouse is in most cases connected to your computer. I guess technically you could go with a cordless mouse, but I'm not sure how far you'll be able to get away from your computer and still be able to use the buttons. But what a remote does is a remote is about, oh gosh, it's about a third of the size of the average telephone, mobile phone. You hold it in your hand and it has buttons for left and right in your presentation. And it connects with it attaches, it has an external port that attaches to your computer's USB slot, and there's a battery in the remote. So the remote is talking to the computer through that USB port, and you can stand on the other side of a room and use the advanced buttons to move to the next slide or previous slide.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, David?
Not in the chat. No,
Okay.
that's all we have.
Does anyone else have questions? Anything that you'd like me to go over again? Or I can just show you some more features and we can play around a little bit. So right now, and feel free to jump in with a question. I'm going to show you right now these design ideas on the right side. When I click on one of these options, it changes it. And I love these different design ideas. And notice I have a number of different options up and down the right side. And those just help make it look more professional. It can be very helpful to put your logo on every slide. The system has what's called slide masters, and you can go in there and put a logo in the footer and have it appear on your slides. This is kind of an advanced topic, but what appears on your title slide at the very beginning, you might have a large logo there. You don't necessarily want the logo again in the bottom corner. There are different templates you can use for slides. This is an advanced topic, but I just want you to know the possibilities of what you can do. So I'm going to go back to the home menu and look at some of these other options here. The font that you choose, let me choose a font. Oops, wrong screen here. Here we go. Let's double click here. The font that you use, choose one or two fonts to use in your presentation. Actually, 2 is nice, but if you get to 4, it starts to get complicated and you lose the continuity of looking from slide to slide. Here, they have a larger font for the headings on the left side, but it's the same type font it looks like. Let's test it. Right now, I have this highlighted and it's showing me the font up here on the top. And when I go over to this other side, the fonts are the same. See how the word where the font is up here on the top is matching. But you could choose a different font, but don't get caught up in loving so many different fonts. There can be some fonts that, as pretty as they are very hard to read. And you don't want people looking at your presentation trying to determine what it says. they can just get a little bit tricky and complicated. So just be thoughtful of what the person's looking at. Other things we might want to talk about here. Let's see.
I have a little quick question and the
Yes.
last one, I promise.
Oh, no, I love the questions. Keep them coming.
As I said, I do presentations for ladies prayer line groups, and one of the things I do is deep breathing exercises. So how do I insert the calm and relaxing music? Is that possible to do from the internet?
There is. Let me get you started on that one. It's in the insert. And there is an audio insert. Let's see.
Oh, great, great.
I haven't done this one for a bit, but yes, I used to do it all the time. You can have it be, here we go, audio. You can insert audio and you get to decide how the audio starts. So you click on that, it's going to prompt you for the location for that audio file. And what I like to do when I have audio in a presentation is I want the presentation slide to show up first. So I have the slide show up first, and then there's going to be a little audio image. Let's see if I can audio. So it's going to ask for from my PC. And now it's asking me to go look for it. If I chose one and put it in here, that little audio image up there that you see, it would then paste that on my slide. And I have a choice. When I get to that slide, it'll show that little image, and I can, by default, I believe I have to click on that to play whatever audio file I associated with it. If I'm going to be walking around a room and I have one of those remotes in my hand, I can set that audio to play upon my next right click. That means instead of advancing to the next slide with that right click, it will play the audio, and that would allow the presenter to continue to walk around the room and not have to come up to the PC to click it. That is a fun way to add audio to your presentation. And it keeps it. You just need to pay attention. It's looking for the location of that music on your computer. So be careful where you're capturing that from. If you're capturing it from the internet, and you have taken your computer, you've gone somewhere else, you're with people, you open your computer and you don't have internet access, you go to click that audio file and you don't have access because you're not on the internet. So ideally, you want to capture that audio file, put it on your PC, and make sure the audio link is pointing to the location of that file actually on your PC. And then the presentation will work whether you have internet or not.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're
I appreciate the entire presentation was great. Thank you.
Yay, thanks so much.
And that same point you just made about saving the audio to your PC, that would also be important, like if you had a video you were playing in the...
Absolutely. Audio is treated the same as video. Exactly. And I would encourage you always to have your audio and your video on your computer. And the reason for that is people nowadays tend to move from one person's internet to another. I had a presentation one time that I went to a hospital and I had an audio clip. And when I went into the hospital, I had pre-checked out the conference room I was going to be in. Everything was set. And then they said to me, you cannot hook your computer up to our internet system because we are so tightly secure. We will not allow you on. So I said, I needed the internet for what I was doing. I brought my presentation on a flash drive, which I recommend for you if you're ever going anywhere else. I brought it on a flash drive. So they said, we deal with this all the time, no problem. We'll take your flash drive and we'll put it on one of our laptops and then you can get to the internet. Well, that solved most of my problems, but it did not allow me to have the audio that I had on my PC. So those are a couple things for you to be aware of. When you take your PC somewhere else, you may not have access to the internet like you think. So the more you can copy to your PC, the better. And for that particular presentation, I missed the audio, which was not a big deal, but was real important at this hospital. When I presented, the reason I had the internet link was I wrapped up at the end with a great commercial that they have on TV with a wonderful piece of music. And I ended with their own commercial. And it really caught them by surprise because it's a short 30-second wrap up of them, celebrating themselves at their own presentation. So with that presentation, when I had the choice of keep the audio and run the presentation from my laptop versus use their internet and lose my audio, I wanted to use their internet because I really wanted to wrap up with their commercial. So sometimes you're going to have to make some choices. Recommendations for you. This is my safety backup plan for when I do a presentation. I have a checklist that I carry with me in my laptop bag when I travel with a PowerPoint presentation. And on that checklist, it says PowerPoint presentation on computer, PowerPoint presentation on a flash drive, print out a hard copy of the PowerPoint presentation with my notes, bring the PowerPoint remote with an extra battery. Make sure I have my power cable. I never want to run up my presentation just from the battery. I always want to run it with my power cable if I'm able to. My computer's a little bit older and I don't want it to ever surprise and end for an unexpected power loss. So I love to run off the power cable. I never have a problem getting my power wherever I am. And if you're doing a lot of presentations and you're not at a place that's used to someone with presentations, a couple other items that can be helpful for you. A long extension cord and also an HDMI power cable. HDMI power cable. That goes from my laptop directly to their monitor. Years ago, when I would show up, I needed an adapter that connected to their presentation system that was often mounted on the ceiling. There are still some setups that way. They often have those cables for that. But nowadays, a lot of them aren't running on a projector screen anymore. More and more setups are on the large LCD panel. And I want to make sure I can connect my laptop with that. And usually they have their own, but if not, an HDMI cable between my computer and their presentation monitor will do the trick. I had one time where that didn't work and we didn't have a large audience, thank goodness. I set my laptop up in front of the group and everyone had to look at my laptop screen. It was the biggest screen we had. And then I walked around with my remote in presentation mode and we had people look at the monitor directly. So be thoughtful, be creative, and imagine that there is a way you're going to make sure this presentation gets out there and be ready for your options. Ideally, if you're going to present somewhere, I encourage you to go ahead of time and test it. I do this when I present at a local college. I talk with them ahead of time and I show up and I test my equipment a day or two early. Because I often, when I do present, I show up, I let them know I'm going to show up at least 30 minutes early to test all my equipment and make sure everything works. And I bring extra items. I often leave them in my car, like the extension cord. If I need it, I just run out to my car. I have those extra things with me to plan and prepare because when people show up, I want to be ready to go. And just to give you an idea, with these webinars that we do, we have David hosting for me. Thank you so much, David. David's hosting this webinar and I'm presenting. I often host webinars for SBDC. And when we host, we log on 15 minutes ahead of time to test everything. And by that, I mean, we're looking at each other's camera, we're testing our audio. On my side today, I opened up both of my PowerPoint presentations and shared them and then stopped sharing them. I wanted to make sure it was going to look correct for you guys. And we had a little bit of time to make adjustments if necessary. So I encourage you, if you do webinars, log in at least 15 minutes ahead of time. Have someone else log in with you as your support person to either host the webinar for you or to be someone who will tell you, like, here's what I've had happen before. Linda, you're sharing the wrong screen. We're looking at a different screen. It's like, thank you so much for telling me because we're recording this and we want to get it right. And when I recorded that mistake, I kept it in because I want all of you to know we sometimes make mistakes when we're recording something, and that's life. And we learn from it and move on. And I let people know We're learning all the time. If you ever make a mistake, don't think of it. This isn't a win-lose world. It's a win-learn world. So if you're winning, wonderful. If it doesn't go as you planned, it is a learning opportunity, and take that learning opportunity. So we have just a couple minutes. I have time for one more question before I switch back to our SBDC webinar screen. Is there another question I can address before I do that? I think we are set.
If no one had one,
Go ahead.
what about Zoom? I'm doing a presentation actually next week on Tuesday, and they want to do a Zoom. So do I need to maybe go to YouTube and see how, is there a lot of preparation I need to, I see Zoom on my computer as I'm looking at it right now, that didn't know if that means Zoom to enlarge or what.
Sure. Let's talk about that for just a moment. Zoom is a software application. And in order to run a Zoom webinar, the length that we're running, this is an 1.5-hour webinar. To do that, you have to own Zoom, have a license to it.
Oh.
Are you already a user of Zoom? Do you already own the ability to create webinars on Zoom?
Yeah, I do, but I haven't done so. I've been just watching Zoom, but they showed me that I could create.
Yes. Okay. So I would strongly encourage you to go to YouTube and search for some instructions on how to use Zoom. There are a couple different versions of Zoom, so make sure you look at the right one. I think they've renamed them recently, so I hesitate to give a name to it specifically, but they used to have a webinar version and a regular version. They have slightly different options. So when you look at the YouTube video, you'll notice the menus on the bottom will match what you have or they won't. I strongly recommend to you to set up a test webinar with another person for 10 minutes and just play with it so you know what's happening, and practice before you run that webinar. And do start at 15 minutes early and test everything. And we could actually create a whole other class on Zoom, but yes, Zoom is a wonderful platform. We're using it right here.
Can I make a suggestion as well?
Yes, please, David.
One thing you might want to do is go to YouTube and search Shasta SBDC and look at our list of webinars that we already have posted up there. Linda has a 5 or 10 minute video on using Zoom that she did for us.
David, that is so funny. I did that so long ago, I forgot.
That she did for us about, it was probably a year ago. So it's terrific. Suggest you look at that as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, I love that we have that. I forgot about that. That was when Zoom first came out. Most people didn't know how to use it. So I am going to go back to switching my other screen and sharing my other screen. Here we go. And we will move along on this one. We did our questions. So this is our wrap-up slide. There's a lot of information on here for you. Feel free to pull out your telephone and take a picture, or you will have this at the end of the video presentation that David's going to share with you, the video of this training. We are the Shasta-Cascade SBDC, and we serve Trinity and Shasta counties. So if you're a small business owner in one of these locations, please reach out to Emily. Emily's address is right here. And Emily is the person that you meet with first, that you talk with first, and her phone number is there. Emily talks with you and determines, are we a good fit for you? And also, which advisor can you meet with? And there are a number of different advisors. When I started my company, I came to the Shasta-Cascade SBDC and I met with an advisor to help me just get the understanding of my company to really create how should I roll my business out. So there's a lot of different topics to support on. There's QuickBooks support, there is marketing, there is we have human resource webinars we do. So there are a lot of different webinars and a lot of different abilities that you can tap into with specialists, and Emily is the point person for you on that. And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and we have our own YouTube channel. Notice that YouTube channel because you can go there, and we would love it if you would like that YouTube channel, because the more likes we get on the YouTube channel, then we get an actual, instead of the crazy alphabet at the end, we would get to be able to say something like Shasta SBDC. But in order to do that, we need more people to like our channel. So if you do that, you'll be able to see other videos that we have recorded and shared there with you. And here we are perfectly at the bottom of the hour, and we are wrapping up. And David, before I wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to share? Have I missed anything?
I don't think you've missed a thing, but like we said, if you're not in Shasta or Trinity counties, Google your SBDC, Google your county where you're at. There's one near you. There's nearly 1,000 of them across the US. So there is an SBDC near you that can help you. And all of our services, again, they're at no cost to you and they're confidential. Can't even tell my dog that we're working with you. We can't tell anybody. So yes, please do that.
Thank you so much for attending today. I really appreciate you taking the time. And now this is key. I want you to take action on what you just learned. Take action on it. It's fresh right now. If you wait 2 weeks, it won't be. So go do something with PowerPoint and put your learning into place. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at another training. Have a great day.